Hello, my name is Jana Marquez, as you already know, and our group will be discussing the global effects of climate change. This particular issue will be focusing on the ecological impact of globalization and its creation as an additional factor for migrant individuals, also known as refugees. The United States and a lot of other countries have been and are currently dealing with an influx of refugees due to war, crime, violence, human rights violation, economic instability, and economic hardships, and much more. However, recently, climate change has marked a new type of refugee called climate refugees or environmental migrants. These individuals are fleeing their locations due to the direct and indirect impacts of climate change. The acceleration of climate change is increasing, and its ecological effects are creating an influx of refugees because geographic locations are becoming increasingly unbearable to live in. Um, According to Stagger, ecological globalization is being recognized as potentially life threatening for life on the planet. In addition, he discusses the transboundary pollution and its creation of extreme weather events. Many lower developing countries resort to industrialization to boost their economic stability, um, boost their economic production, and therefore creating economic stability and thus further degrading the environment. Creating a paradoxical poverty trap. Poor individuals tend that want to boost their economy um, tend to resort to industrialization, further affecting the environment. And those in impoverished areas are affected the most because by climate change because of the disasters that occur, and thus needing assistance due to the natural disasters or the disasters and continuing this cycle. Steger also discusses the population growth and the environmental degradation and the exploitation of natural resources through agricultural usage. To further explain, there's a decrease in biodiversity globally. Developing countries have also exploited their resources around them because many poor people and poor families um, struggle to feed and care for themselves, thus resorting to the exploitation of the natural resources. This phenomenon will force people to migrate to locations that are more habitable. The article Intervention 3, Global Refugee and the Age in the Age of Climate Change, states the acceleration of climate change will create an increase of refugees and internally displaced populations. The message, the National Climate Assessment, the fourth National Climate Assessment has recently been released, and Chapter 19, Key Message 3, addresses the issues of climate change in the southeast. It also states that the alter and fire regimes causing it to be more intense and changing its size and patterns of fire occurrences. The message also suggests a longer duration um, of droughts throughout the years and a change in winter air temperature in the southeast as well. Many impoverished individuals tend to live in high risk areas, such as by the ocean or by rivers, because they're dependent on the natural resources that the location provides them. For instance, food or water to bathe and to drink, and much more. Um, Therefore, they are the first to experience the extreme weather changes around them. These are a few of the direct impacts of climate change that will cause an influx of refugees. The article I stated previously explains that agriculture is the main resource for survival for 85% of people rural people or people living in rural areas, and 90% for other areas. Um, However, as stated previously, droughts will have longer duration through the years, thus altering farming patterns and reducing the use of agriculture. The fourth National Climate Assessment, Chapter 19, Key Message 3, explains the natural ecosystems will be transformed and ecological resources for livelihood are at risk. Also, a loss in foundational plant species. This will cause a reduction in natural ecosystems, which many individuals rely heavily on, causing them to migrate to more habitable environments. Um, these are some of the indirect effects of climate change, creating an influx of refugees in other countries. The article also suggests that around 2050, somewhere around 200 million or 700 million will be displaced as a consequence of climate change. Um, in conclusion, after review, ecological globalization and the effects of increased climate change is creating an influx of migrant individuals because there are certain areas in the world that are becoming inhabitable. The ones who will be most affected by these consequences are those living in rural areas, such as individuals from developing countries, because they are dependent on the natural ecosystem around them. And they will be forced into displacement because extreme weather patterns, environmental degradation, the reduction in biodiversity are impacting their livelihood and their homes. People in rural areas are impacted the most because they tend to be living in impoverished areas, um, impoverished locations, meaning there is there's not much consideration in their protection from these natural occurrences and extreme weathers. In my opinion, we are now in a time where climate change is not preventable anymore. We're now living in a time where it's already here. However, it could be controlled and sustained, and I feel that way about refugees. You know, if you we could create area a living area for them where natural occurrences can less impact their homes and their environment around them, therefore decreasing the influx of refugees in countries such as the United States. Um, with any problem, I believe to find a solution, you must start at the base of the issue. If you start at the base of the refugees where they're living and start by creating a place where they can stay where they're at so they do not have to migrate to countries or locations that they can live in, then we can create a decrease in the influx of refugees coming into these countries. Um, and to conclude, I believe that this issue is very prominent now because climate change is increasing, and we do have a issue with refugees in general, but now this is increasing the rate of refugees going into countries, and there's not much policy around this, and some people don't even accept refugees, but this is something that you can't change. You have to deal with. So, yeah, that is my presentation, and I hope my other peers have presented you with further information on this issue that we're focusing on. Otherwise, my part is done, and I hope you enjoyed Professor McCall. I will see you soon, and have a great holidays. Happy holidays.